Welcome to another weekend here on the platform. It is our tradition to examine developments in the polity, and today will be no different. My name is Sam Omasheye.
The quiet in Broglie brawls, but on the streets, indifferent silence. The vanity of politicians squelches the interest or welfare of the masses. The masses, ever their own enemies, have done their best to bolster the political class who look down at us in the malignancy of their disdain. We have abided the impunity of the political parties, so the politicians do what they please as they please. I have said all along that we have had crisis in the APC since the upswing of this administration, and the APC is not in a classic sense a political party. The idea of a political party is still foreign to this climb. Political parties are like football teams. Arsenal buys a Drogba today and plays against Messi in Barcelona. Tomorrow, the players switch sides. In the easy morality of soccer adventurism, no one questions the moves. Each side hails the switch if in their calculations it will earn them the trophy at the end of the day. Political parties are not conceived that way. Its members come as apostles and foot soldiers of an idea born out of historical exigencies. The members join to advance the world. But politics in Nigeria is immune to such high-wire thoughts. The highest we have traveled in this regard is to sacrifice the polity to the idol of the tribe or to the altar of faith, or both. We have followed this wounded path and taken it for granted. It is the tribal provenance of politics. But the National Assembly has fallen many steps lower in the moral slope. This is the nakedness of personal interest. It is not about anything but what bread is buttered, even if the society is not bettered. We are simultaneously in the Machiavellian hole and Hobbesian jungle. A man like Bukola Turaki is holding the Senate to ransom. He is supposed to convene, but he wouldn't. It is not because it is in the interest of the country. It is because he wants to know if it will not become a gravedigger's moment for his prestige as the number 3 citizen. Both sides are guilty here. The APC wants him to convene to stir a house to bipartisan melee. Turaki is afraid he may fall to the guillotine. On the surface, it looks like a balance of power, but it is a balance of fear. APC will suffer much if it turns the House of Law into a template of anarchy. Turaki may suffer a loss of authority. Unlike Eleimi of village headmaster, Turaki does not like open confrontation. He is a sly, calculating villain, a subdued showman, and a reptilian stalker with a Mephistophelian eye for the easy kill. Eleimi of village headmaster craved the bloodstain, the headbutts, the mud splash of conflicts. That is why we are not having the kind of parliament in medieval Poland that a critic described as a divinely ordained confusion. One thing is clear. This is a moot senate with nothing serious on its agenda. The so-called thief over INEC money is a storm in a swimming pool when no swimmer stirs the water and no breaststroke is splashing. In the end, a presidential power can enable the spending. We have operated an insipid, brain-dead chamber with no romance of ideas or a pulse of the streets. Between now and May next year, there would have only a mercantile zeal, sharing booties hooting to the bank and plotting their return to the same parliamentary brothel of deals and sleaze. Since they were prorogued, what have we missed as a nation that we did not miss before when they sat without their jaws locked? Nothing except Vacuous theatre. Now that their jaws are locked, we miss nothing. It reflects why scholars call developing countries weak states. They are not strong enough to affect the literacy rate, make a difference between poverty and prosperity, between safety and violence. This Senate has failed in that regard aplenty. So, we are not missing Turaki. Rather, in an access of vanity, he is mistaking the headlines for popularity and paying homage to OBJ and joining the recent series of dubious pilgrims making progress to Ota in a parody of John Bunyan. He who presided over the demolition of 3 banks with their blood trails of suicides, deaths, mysteries and families ruined. That makes him Nigeria's financial undertaker. He who never ran anything other than his own prosperity. He who survived a Supreme Court verdict and illiterate juridical handouts by so-called wise men, who said it was a rumor that he anticipated his own prosperity in his assets declaration. I said he claimed to be a prophet of his own prosperity. He wants to be president. With all those credentials, no one else qualifies to be president. A tear for him. Nor is APC acting mature by haranguing Turaki. There is nothing substantially useful for this country even if Turaki is ejected. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo should be a playbook for governance for the Red Chamber. In a few days, he made impotent the concept of the state as impotent. With his SAS order, he gave us a glimpse into tomorrow, an argument for state police without ruffling the law, a triumph of imagination over technicality, a riot of debates bowed to the quiescence of an order. He threw a dagger at impunity by ousting Daura. We are quietly joyous at a tamp down in the herdsmen crisis. This column had suggested that the Air Force should strafe the forest. That's what they have done, and the guns, machetes, and the swagger in the dark are fading. The Air Force, as angels over our soldiers, have made the sky lord over the so-called herdsmen's earth. For about a month now, Benue, Taraba, Adamawa et al. Have breathed relative peace unknown in the past year. Plateau knew peace until the bloody spasm winked into silence. To Buhari's credit, this predated his leave. What we need now is the sustenance of peace and justice on the arrested predators. While the executive can boast a few kudos in spite of its major shortcomings, the Senate, including Turaki, has not justified Montesquieu's idea of the separation of powers. In 2008, I had a conversation with Olawale Edun, the chairman of Vintage Press that publishes The Nation. He is one-time commissioner in Lagos. He was hosting world-renowned writer V.S. Naipaul. My blood ran to the hilltop and I requested an audience for an interview. Shomongpae, he asked in Yoruba. Translation, are you versed in such matters? I said of course. He trusted me and set up an audience in his Ikoyi residence for the Nobel laureate. I had heard many things about Naipaul. He could walk out of an interview in a huff. His temper could boil like a volcano and he could cheer like a golden retriever. That morning, I was to travel to Ekiti to deliver the Adekunle Fajui lecture organized by the cerebral governor-elect Kayode Fayemi, Jimi Agbaje, Femi Ojudu. I wanted a quick interview. Naipaul materialized from a car with his wife Nadira, and we chose Edu's hefty library as the propitious place for such a vital exchange. The interview lasted about 2 hours, and it was principally of a conversation about literature from Conrad to Dickens to Achebe and the relevance of the novel in this age. I remember asking him to pick his forte in the 3 planks of good writing: observation, perception, or language. He chose observation and language. Of course, his spare and beautiful style earned him the comment as the best writer in English writing today. He had few kind words for Achebe, asserting he had little to write outside the customs of his people. After things fall apart, his ink ran dry. He was quick to say, if he had offended anyone, I am sorry. But the bard had dropped his barb and darted out of town. After the interview, he said no one had tasked him as I did in the interview. Farewell to Naipaul, who passed on last week at 85.
Welcome to Big Talk. Our guest today is the first presidential candidate or aspirant for 2019 that will appear on this show, and is no other than Tanimu Turaki, presidential aspirant of the PDP. You're welcome to this show, sir.
Thank you for having me.
This is not your first time seeking public office. Can you go through what happened? It looks like you were looking for public office once as a governor, and you weren't given the opportunity to at least try to the end.
Well, thank you, viewers. Yes, it's true that I had at some previous occasions sought the mandate of my people to govern my state, Kebbi State. Unfortunately, I have not been successful, not because my people never wanted me, but because of some circumstances which I will consider arising out of my fate as an individual. The first time I won the primaries, quite clearly, but somehow the leaders of the party
prevailed on you?
Not prevailed on me, decided to opt for another person. They thought will be better managed than me. The second time...
What does better managed mean?
Better managed because, you know, there's this feeling that lawyers are difficult people to control. So they feel that as a lawyer, you cannot be manipulated. And so they felt...
Is it just about being a lawyer?
I don't know, but it's one of the prices that we lawyers pay, because people think that we know too much. Our eyes has opened very well. We know our rights. And so people, particularly within the political realm, when you have individuals who think that they are godfathers, who think that they ought to decide who gets what, when and how, and who does what even after getting what. And so they felt that they would rather prefer somebody than me. I took it in good faith and said, okay, if you are taking this away from me, let me then go out there and take something and get something that nobody will take out from me. And so I dusted my wig and gown and then went back to the course and became a senior advocate of Nigeria. And for me, most probably, if I had become a governor then, in 1999, I probably would never have gotten the opportunity of getting to the highest peak of my profession as a lawyer. So I thank God that disappointment turned out to be a blessing in disguise for me.
So if you had not become a son, that would have been a continuous ache in your body that there was something
that something had been missing, that one had not been able to get to the point of excellence. To the highest peak of his calling as a professional. The second time, I was a candidate. I had gone to INEC and done the verification as a gubernatorial candidate of PDP in 2007, and my name had been displayed in all the local government INEC offices in my state, Kebbi State. Then suddenly the governor of my state, Senator Mohammed Adamu Aleru, decamped to the PDP. And he decamped from AMPP
to
PDP with his
ANPP
gubernatorial candidate, who, as it were, had also been verified by INEC, and his name had been displayed alongside my own as the gubernatorial candidate of AMPP in Kebbi State. But then the leadership of our party said that, having decamped as a governor, that he should not be humiliated. And so we made concession. And
so it was a concession to hubris.
It was a concession. And it wasn't only in Kebbi.
No, I mean a concession to hubris rather than right.
That is it. That is it. And it wasn't only in Kebbi State, it was also in Sokoto State, because at that point in time I can remember Barrister Muktari Shagari was the PDP gubernatorial candidate for Sokoto State, who had also gone through the same processes with me. And then Wamako, the former governor and now a sitting senator, also decamped to PDP. And on the same consideration, on the same basis, then he now conceded through intervention by the national leadership of our party his ticket to him. But because they came from different senatorial districts, so they were able to have themselves paired up. And so Muktari came in as a deputy governor. But in my own case, even though we came from different senatorial districts with Saidu Nasamu Dakingari, who then took my ticket, but were from the same emirate. And so the configuration in Kebbi was different from that one in Sokoto. And so...
But the final analysis, you guys had to cave in.
Yeah, we did.
For the bigger
we
fish.
did for the bigger picture, not necessarily bigger fish. For the bigger picture, because we wanted to show to the people that it wasn't just about us. We wanted to show to the people that what we were looking for was an opportunity to also serve our people and then contribute our own quota in the development and progress of our people. So if at the end of the day we felt that another person was given the opportunity or was brought in to take over, then we felt the best we could do in the circumstances was to assist that person to succeed, and that we did tremendously.
Well, that was gubernatorial ambition.
Yes.
We didn't get it, and now you're looking for the bigger fish position. Why do you think you qualified for the bigger one when you didn't get the smaller one?
I think times have changed. And
times changed, you didn't change?
And let me say that society is dynamic. Life itself is dynamic. And so as a result of that dynamism, what may be relevant yesterday may not be relevant today. And so what is critical today may not be critical tomorrow. In between then, one has matured up, so to say. I have risen to the highest peak of my profession. I had also been able to work in different other places and had been able to garner more experience, more maturity, more knowledge, and more ways of looking at things from a more profound and then wider dimension.
You are referring to your state.
I'm referring to myself. I'm referring myself. Not only serving as a minister. In between, I had served as the chairman of the Nigeria Copyright Commission. I had served as a director of a bank, Bank of the North. And I was not appointed by shareholders, but I was appointed by the regulatory agencies, NDIC, CBN, to save the bank from imminent collapse.
Bank of the North.
Bank of the North there.
But it's collapsed now.
It has not collapsed. We saved it, but it went into merger with other banks. So that is not a collapse.
Was an escape from death. It can't stand on its own.
I have been chairman of...
we can say it collapsed into another bank.
No, not collapsed. It moved into another bank because on a serious note, we saved that firm from colossal losses to profitability. We stopped the fleecing, we stopped the bleeding and the fleeing of the customers. It was the one biggest bank in the north and one of the biggest banks in this country. And so if the regulatory agencies had allowed that bank to go down, probably majority of the people who bank in the north will have lost confidence in the banking institution and have reverted to the old ways of doing things.
And have caused a lot of disruption to the economy. It will have
caused a lot of disruption in the economy. And so it was a good decision that the regulatory agencies then saw the need to assemble experts from diverse background into a board that finally salvaged that bank from imminent collapse.
Now, you became minister.
I became a minister.
A PDP man.
Yes.
You played some roles in the ministry. One of them had to do with the girls, or not necessarily the girls this time. Tell us your role in trying to be like a go-between in negotiating with Boko Haram.
Well, I didn't play any go-between role, as it were. The federal government then, under President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, saw the need to fight terror in the way and manner is done globally. And everywhere terror is fought in the world is done on a twin approaches of carrot and stick. And what was then happening in Nigeria was the stick. And so it was felt, after the whole matter was painstakingly considered and reviewed, that there was a need for the carrot approach to also be brought in. And so the federal government established the Presidential Committee on Dialogue. And then I was saddled with the onerous responsibility of presiding it. And let me say it was one committee that had drawn into it accomplished Nigerians from diverse backgrounds. Diplomats, religious leaders, security agents, senior citizens, and so on and so forth. But each and every one of them were people that had added value. And I see it, again, as one of the turning points in my life. Because for me to have the opportunity of heading a committee that was that rich, I think was a great opportunity for me.
That rich in personnel.
In personnel.
Human capacity.
People like Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, people like Senator McCarthy, people like General Sabo Mohammed, who was a retired director of military intelligence, people like Air Vice Marshal A.I. Shehu, who was the then director of air intelligence, people like Sheikh Ahmed Lemu, yes, people like Professor Sani Abubakar Luga, the Waziri of Katsina, a great academician and a great administrator, and a lot of others.
So we were in good company.
So we were in good company. I was able to draw inspiration from the wealth of experience of these great and accomplished Nigerians. And when the committee was set up, we were left on our own. Outside the time of reference, we were left on our own to now go and find out how we will get to the key members of the insurgency and then open up dialogue with them. And this is against the background when previous attempts that were done by some government agencies were being seen as being done in a very fraudulent manner by the insurgents. So there was that apparent lack of trust. So not only were we at the beginning forced to begin to look for leads, and we found 23 of them. But out of these 23, only 4 were credible. And then initially, there was this lack of confidence. So we had to first build a relationship. After building the relationship, and then we now tried to prove ourselves that we were sincere before they would begin to come out and talk to us. And of course, usually in matters of this nature, they will send low members of the insurgency that are not critical to test waters with them.
Yes.
So as you begin to develop that confidence, then they begin to send bigger members of the group. But I tell you that we were able not only to find them, but we established a relationship that was able to build confidence. And that confidence was heightened to trust. And we got to a level where we could talk to key members of the insurgency. We could invite them to come for meetings anywhere we wanted. And there was very frank and fruitful discussion between us. Of course, we had gotten to the point where we got the president to direct that any member of the insurgency that was coming to attend meeting with the dialogue committee should not be arrested. And so indeed, those of them that were arrested in the course of coming to have discussions with the dialogue committee were released to show good faith and then to strengthen that trust. And so we were able to achieve a lot with the committee.
In spite of what you say about achieving a lot, till the end of the Jonathan regime, insurgency had taken over a great chunk of Borno State and parts of UB and so on. So it looked like...
No, I wouldn't agree with you.
What was the...
I wouldn't agree with you because we had a situation where terrorist activities were taking place in about 11 states. As a result of the dialogue that was embarked upon, and as a result of the activities also of the armed forces, who now were operating within the acceptable normal standards and rules of engagement, were able to push the activities to the key frontline states of Yobe, Borno, and Adamawa. And not only that, and I'm sure Nigerians could recall also, that when the federal government then requested for postponement of the time of the election by 6 weeks. Now, federal government then was able to push the remnants of the Boko Haram elements to the fringes of Nigerian borders. And that was why it was possible for INEC to conduct election in each and every one of the 774 local governments in this country. Now, it was...
Well, you cannot say that they really conducted elections in 774.
Elections were conducted. And yes, it was about that time that PDP lost election, that the second committee, which was a precursor to the first one, concluded its assignment. Unfortunately, PDP had lost election. So, but we still submitted our report, and there was no time for the PDP-led government then of President Jonathan to now implement it. But I tell you that those Nigerians that were privileged to have a preview of what was contained in that report are convinced that had that report and the recommendation contained in it been implemented, that most probably that would have been the end of insurgency in this country.
You mean that the document is still there?
It's still there.
We still have insurgency, although it's much reduced now.
Yes, because not only this, you could recall that there was a national conference.
Yes.
And the report of national conference, which contained also key recommendations on how to address certain critical questions of suspicion between Nigerians that could have resolved a lot of other emotional issues, had also been kept aside by this government.
So your submission is that the achievements that Jonathan, through your
Presidential Dialogue
Committee achieved, actually was able to degrade Boko Haram from places like Kaduna. You had Kaduna, you had Abuja.
You see, I wouldn't want to go...
You have to be very clear.
I'm coming.
Because when Buhari took over,
yes,
the credit he had for the very first year was that these people cannot raise up their flags anywhere anymore, which was not so in Jonathan's case. In the other states you mentioned, they were like forests and then they withdrew. And so you say that your committee was able to make that.
You see, we've gotten to the level
of no effect.
We've gotten to the level where the insurgents were willing to lay down their arms. Not all of them. Because whatever you do, you should appreciate that this is an insurgency that is based on dogma, as misguided as it may appear. And don't forget that there were those that were doing it for the purpose of religious purposes, again, as misguided as it may be. There are other people that were ordinary criminals that had keyed into it for their own personal purposes.
They took advantage.
They took advantage of the situation. So that even if you are able to get the Boko Haram elements absolutely to key into the dialogue option 100%, there are still some people that will have still continued who were not authentic members of that insurgency, but who are taking advantage of that insurgency for their selfish ends.
You don't think that is what's still going on in some parts of Borno and Yobe?
I don't think so. And let me go back to what I had wanted to say before your last question. You see, we had gotten to the level, I will be peripheral as far as discussing the recommendations and the report of the committee is concerned, because something that is classified.
But so it's available to the government.
It's available with the government.
But you have not used it.
I don't know, but it does not appear that government is using it. We've gotten to the level where some key members of the insurgency were willing to lay arms. We were at that point when we lost the election. And elaborate arrangements that will have to be made were such that it needed a lot of time. Because when you now agree to take that relationship further, now there will be the issue of disarmament. Apart from the issue of disarmament, there's the issue of de-radicalization. Now, with the issue of de-radicalization will be the issue of trying to ensure that you get them either reinserted or reintegrated back into the society. But before you do that, you must place them in a situation where they will go back into their communities or other communities as people that will be productive members of the society. And so the issue of training and vocational training, acquisition of some kinds of skills becomes necessary. And so we didn't have time. It was not something that we could say, okay, when election had been won and lost, and clearly a new government was going to come in. And so we couldn't start something haphazardly. And so we felt that the best thing that could be done was submit the report, leave it for the incoming government, and let the incoming government decide how and what to do with it. And this government decided not to look at it, like it refused to look at the report of the National Conference. But I tell you, and speaking with all sense of responsibility, if this government had looked into that report and had implemented some of the recommendations that are contained therein, most probably the issue of insurgency in Nigeria will have been a thing of the past. I'm confident, I'm sure about that.
Now you are a presidential candidate or aspirant, as you say in Nigeria.
Yes.
In the US, we call you a candidate. Mm. Now, your PDP is, as they say, full of big egos, big names who want to fight for it. Now that Turaki has moved now from APC to PDP, he has joined that place where you have himself, yourself, Atiku, Abubakar, Kwakwanso, Lamido, and so on and so forth. And you guys are going to contest. So people say, well, these are heavyweights. Are you going to a situation where you go back to what happened in your gubernatorial quest, where you have to again cede your ambition to so-called big guys, or as I said, concede to hubris?
You see, not anymore. Politics is about interest. Any type of politics at whatever level, whether local or international politics, is about interest. And so what is permanent is interest. Now, the ability of a political party to manage this diverse interest, which more often are diametrically opposed to each other, and carry everybody along, is what determines the maturity, the strength, the sophistication of that political organization or political party. Now, PDP, we've learned our lessons. We've made mistakes. We made mistakes because we're human. But those mistakes were genuine and honest mistakes that we made. And we've learned a lot of lessons from them. And that is why we always assure Nigerians that this is a change PDP. Now, all of us, and I'm again speaking with all sense of responsibility, all of us are eminently qualified to lead Nigeria and perhaps do it better, 1,000 times better than what APC is doing today. Now we believe, I personally had gone to visit each and every one of these aspirants within PDP, and I've spoken to them heart to heart. It is not about us. It is not even about our political party, PDP. It's about Nigeria.
You've gone to
I have spoken with Atiku with a lot of respect.
Conversation with Atiku, does he say you should run?
No, we are already in the race. But I've gone to see him as one of the leaders.
What did you tell him?
And I told him, sir, we are in the race. We are in the race, but you still remain my leader. You are still my senior brother. And the respect I had for you when you were vice president still remains. And I assured him.
Then you told him, I'm going to defeat you.
No, we didn't discuss about who was going to defeat who. We have been more nationalistic in our discussions. Like I said, it's about the party. But we looked even beyond the party. We look at Nigeria. We've seen the situation that Nigerians are in now. Hunger, poverty, hopelessness, desperation, lack of security, divisiveness, and everything. And we said, if we are that patriotic, and indeed we are that patriotic, we should look at the bigger picture. It's not about him or me or any other aspirant for that matter. It's about Nigeria. But the most important thing that came out of the discussion we had was the resolve that whosoever got it between us, that we will support the other. And I know from the way I related with him that His Excellency Vice President Atiku Abubakar was very, very open and sincere to me as an elder. And I was also very frank and respectful to him.
That is Kwankwaso?
Kwankwaso, I have not met Kwankwaso. But outside, because Kwankwaso was not in PDP then.
Okay.
Yes.
Just moved to APC.
I have not, but I met Sule Lamido, who is my boss and senior. I've met Makarfi, who is my friend. I've met Shekarau, who was my colleague. I've met Bafarawa, who is a brother. We're from the same area, Sokoto, Kebi, Makiu. I have met also Dati, Senator Dati. We've had discussions with him. I've met virtually everybody.
What of the Gombe man?
Gombe, we've discussed. We've had a very robust relationship with him, and we've discussed.
The way you talk about all of them.
I've even met Jang. I spoke with Jang, even though he's yet to declare his interest. But when I learned that he was making consultation and people were talking to him to come out and contest, I met him. I met other people whose names were also touted, who at the end of the day said, for certain personal reasons, we're not going to contest the presidential election. So PDP of today is certainly not the PDP of yesterday.
Saraki soon.
I've met with Saraki. I met with Saraki, even though at that time he was not in PDP, but because I have a personal relationship with him. We're like brothers with him. So I met him as a brother, and we had discussed so passionately about Nigeria and about the way forward.
And you believe that if there's a contest today, you will beat them?
It's not about beating, because the emphasis should not always be about beating. What will happen at the end of the day is that the delegates will decide and their votes will count. And that is the new feeling that we have in PDP arising from the confidence that has been restored in the minds of every card-carrying member by this new leadership, new regime. We believe that there will be level playing ground. We believe that there will be no impunity. So at the end of the day, it's about choice. If the people say this is the person we choose, it's a game. It's a game. At the end of the day, there will be one person. There is no way any political party, even outside PDP for that matter, will present two candidates. It will be one candidate. So whosoever gets this, we stand up, we shake him, we congratulate him, and we key into the project by lining behind him to support him, because it's about Nigeria and not about us.
Some people have said that Turaki is the default compromise candidate. I'm sure you've heard that.
I've heard that severally. And it's obviously or presumably because I'm not fighting anybody and nobody is fighting me. All the presidential aspirants, including Senator Kwankwaso, that I'm yet to speak with, because all my life I've practiced my law in Kano and Abuja. So there is that understanding. We know ourselves very much, even though I've not had the opportunity when he came back into PDP to discuss the issue of presidential contest with him. But we don't have any problem. Now, I believe that should every other aspirant be asked to nominate another person other than him, I will be the person that will have highest number of nominations, because like I said, I have very excellent and robust relationship with virtually every one of them. So if people say that I am likely going to come out as a compromise candidate, I will not be surprised on the account of the relationship that I have with all of them.
Is that why you are visiting all of them, so that each of them will say, okay, I like him, I'm Atiku, I don't like Kwankwaso, so instead of having Kwankwaso or having Dati or any of those people, let me go to Turaki. All of them says Turaki. And
no,
so that...
No, that is not the reason. I personally believe that Nigeria is in a situation where leaders, responsible leaders, must come together and begin to think of a way out. This country had gone through a lot, but never in our political history, probably since our amalgamation by Lord Lugard in 1914, have we find ourselves in a situation where Nigerians have been so divided along various divides. And so the best thing that we can do as leaders is to show some degree of decency I will not wait for a person of the stature and status of Vice President Atiku Abubakar, for instance, to come to me or to call me before I go to him. I will not wait for a person of the stature or standing of Alhaji Sule Lamido, for instance, to come to me or to call me before I go to him. Where I come from, I respect my leaders, I respect my elders. And so regardless of position, regardless of status, I think that I should give them that respect that God has given them. And so for me, making that move to go and talk to them individually is only a mark of respect, which I've always had for them. And I told you I've had a relationship with virtually all of them before now. So if anything, the fact that we are now in a contest should only give us reason to strengthen that relationship, to deepen that understanding, so that at the end of the day we'll be able to see it in a very cozy and convivial atmosphere for us to now decide, what do we do? How do we move our party forward? Particularly coming from where we are, having learned a lot of lessons as a party. And given the fact that Nigerians now are looking upon PDP to save this country. And so if we have to perform the role that Nigerians are expecting us to perform, then we must be honest to ourselves. And we must therefore decide to bridge whatever gaps that may exist, even if those gaps exist among us. And the best thing that we can do is by coming closer to each other, by talking, by fostering and creating better understanding among us in what we do. And I tell you, that is why even as every one of the aspirants are moving around left, right, and talking to the delegates, you could see common understanding. You could see a lot of maturity. You could see a lot of decency in the way and manner every aspirant is going about doing it. Because nobody attacks another. Nobody criticizes another. When we talk to issues.
Maybe it's because the time has not come for you to knock heads.
We will not knock our heads, because there are a lot of people outside there that are expecting that this an area of gladiators like this will certainly get to a point when they start boxing themselves.
You also have
but Nigerians, and particularly members of APC that were thinking that will do that, will be disappointed. Because like I said, we've learned our lessons. We've learned our lessons. And so we will not do that.
What are those lessons you've learned? Especially you worked under Jonathan's government, which is regarded to be a deep failure.
The greatest lesson a political party could learn is to lose an election. Most especially when that party had been in government for 16 uninterrupted years. We lost an election. We lost an election when none of us thought we were going to lose. And the opposition won election at a time and in a manner they never thought they were going to win. And that was why everybody was surprised by the end of election in 2015. We that lost, those that won, because nobody could believe.
It was a strange place for everybody.
It was. And then number two, you now had a president who had always maintained that my aspiration is not worth the blood of any Nigerian. He said that in words, and then he showed it in deeds. Number two, we had another bout of crisis, internal crisis, leadership crisis, with Madu Sharif. With a lot of respect, some of us saw him as an agent that was sent to destabilize the party.
Agent from where?
Agent from outside.
Who's the outside?
From where he is now.
Where he is. But those people thought that he was agent also from outside.
Let me tell you, we went through the harrowing experience of losing an election. And then we had a leadership tussle and leadership crisis for more than a year. So after getting to the end of it, I think the best thing that we can do to ourselves and we can do to our supporters and indeed Nigerians is to sit down and reflect on the lessons that should be learned and which we've learned from those experiences. And that is why today, when we sat down in our last December convention to elect leaders, we went for leaders that will be able to look at the target, leaders that will be able to give level playing ground for everybody. And that is why when you look at the primary elections that were done both in Ekiti and in Oshun by this set of leadership, there was a lot of fairness in them. Yes, there are some people that may be bad losers. Give and take, whichever way it happens, some people will cry at the end of the day. But substantially, the majority of the people who had participated in the processes were satisfied that when they were beaten fair and square. And so they elected to remain with the party. So these are part of the outcomes of the lessons that PDP had learned over time from 2015 to date.
Okay, if, to conclude, we will ask you now, if you become president, what is your vision for Nigeria? How would you realize it? Very briefly.
If I become a president by the special grace of God, the first thing I will try and do is to ensure that I bring back that bond of friendship, that bond of brotherhood and sisterhood that had existed between us. Like we used to say in our former national anthem, though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Now, even if there was no Lord Lugard, Nigeria would still have been in existence because that was the will of God. God only used Lord Lugard as an instrument to bring Nigeria together, and God does not make a mistake. So for God to bring us together and unite us in spite of our pluralities, in spite of our complexities, then God has a purpose for Nigeria. And that was why our leaders in the First Republic had decided to understand our differences for the purpose of understanding ourselves more and then working together. And for Chief Obafemi Awolowo, for Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Tafawa Balewa Ahmadu Bello, it was not about their political parties or their selfish narrow interest. It's about Nigeria. They were looking at the bigger picture. And that was why they were able to work together when they were never members of the same party. That strengthened our bond. Like I said earlier in this conversation, we have now been placed in a situation where people are beginning to doubt whether the Nigerian project can succeed. We need to do something to save the situation by rekindling that sense of patriotism and nationalism in Nigerians. Once again, for us to believe in ourselves and believe in our country. Then the greatest of all is the issue of security. The irreducible minimum obligation of any government, whether democratic, autocratic, or whatever, is that that government must guarantee the protection of the lives and properties of their citizens. Today, Nigerians live in perpetual fear. Yes, when we were in government, there was the unfinished issue of Boko Haram challenges in the key frontline state of Yobe, Borno, and Adamawa state. But today, every day in Plateau, in Nasarawa, in Benue, in Kogi, in Adamawa, in Taraba, as in some parts of Southwest and Southeast, people get killed as a result of the activities of farmers and herders clashing. Nothing has been done. Today, every day.
They sent forces around now.
Those forces have not been effective. And that is why elder statesmen, like General T.Y. Danjuma, that had never been known to be flippant, was forced out of frustration to say to Nigerians, rise and defend yourselves. It's not as if the right to self-defense is something new or strange, because it's a right that is embedded in our constitution. But for a great elder statesman like him to come out and talk in the way and manner he did, then that was very serious. In the same vein, the Emir of Beningwari also came out to talk to his people, to say, rise to defend yourselves. The chairman of the Zamfara State Council of Chiefs and the Emir of Gumi had to even go further, to call on the United Nations and African Union to say, we are being killed. Come to our aid. Nigerian government and Nigerian forces cannot protect our lives and properties. Now you are talking of banditry. And so, as a result of the activities of bandits, every day in Katsina, in Zamfara, in Kaduna, in Niger, and now it's extending to Kebbi and Sokoto states, people get killed by bandits. I'm not talking about the issues of kidnapping. You are not safe at home. You are not safe on the streets. You are not safe in the places of war. So any serious-minded individual that will want to govern Nigeria must look at the issue of security, because that is key, that is the foundation. It is when people believe that there is security for their lives and properties, and by necessary implication investment, that they will even come and do business in Nigeria. And the result of what had happened is that from the 28th of May, 2015, when Nigeria was #1 economy in Africa, when Nigeria was one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Yeah. When Nigeria was number 3, investors most sought after heaven, only after China and Qatar. To date, people divested their investments and left this country, including Nigerians. People now divest from Nigeria to go to other places like Ghana, like South Africa, like Niger, like Cameroon. That is how we've been reduced in this country. If you are one of those who made the mistakes because of your level of patriotism, not to divest and take your investment outside, chances are that if by 28 May 2015 you had 100 million naira capital, today it had been reduced to 200,000 naira or less. This is what had happened. So the issue of economy will have to be addressed. And for people like me, who have the experience of playing in the private sector and spicing it up with my experience in the public sector, will combine the two and galvanize and rejig Nigerian economy to ensure that we get Nigerians to begin to believe in themselves and Nigerian economy first. Because nobody will come and invest in your country when the nationals of that country do not believe in that country itself. You could recall the years of Andrews, when people were checking out from Nigeria. So it was now PDP-led federal government that had to now rekindle that sense of nationalism and patriotism for Nigerians, particularly Nigerian diasporans, to believe that Nigeria can work, to believe that indeed Nigeria was working, and to come back and invest their hard-earned monies in Nigeria. Now they've been driven away by the policy somersaults of the APC-led federal government. So we'll have to do that. Look at the look at the infrastructure that was built by PDP over the years. They're either decayed or decaying now. We have to look at them. Look at the educational sector. A lot of work had to be done. Look at the health sector. The health sector was doing very well when we were in government. But there's a lot of decay now.
Has never done very well
It was doing well.
It has never
Go
done
and
well
check the figures. Look at how we were able to fight Ebola when it came. Look at how we fought Ebola.
It was best fought.
And look at how this government.
Ebola was fought under Fashola for most part.
No.
With help from center too.
It was coordinated from the center.
It was coordination from both sides.
No, but who was playing the lead role? It was the federal government. If you are saying that the governor of Lagos was doing something then, what of other places? Was he also taking charge of everything that was happening in other states?
Anyway.
It was not a Lagos matter.
All right.
So that is it. So what is the situation now? Even the president himself does not believe in the capacity of the health structure to take care of him. So he goes on medical tourism against his promise. So these are issues. For me, any person that will start as a Nigerian president will have to start from the beginning. Because the APC-led federal government had taken us 30 or 35 years back. Instead of even keeping us where we were by 28th of May 2015. If what they had done was even to stagnate growth, to stultify growth, that would have been better for us in Nigeria. But there was retrogression in every aspect of living. Look at even the rule of law. Look at the respect for rule of law. As a lawyer, I will have to look at that. Because unless you place people on the same pedestal, equally, fairly, then there will not be justice. And if there is no justice, you will never have peace. And there can never be progress and development without peace. Again, that is one area that I will have to look at critically when I get there by the special grace of God.
Yes, we've had Tanimu Turaki, SAN, who has been very articulate for the past minutes, and very grateful for spending the time with us on this show, and we wish you luck in the months ahead.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it greatly. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the program. You can catch up with my published columns and articles on my website, www.samomashai.com. Also follow me on Twitter. My handle is @SamOmashai. And enjoy the rest of your day. And until next time, be good.